Congratulations, you've made the decision to hold a live in the room event. Now you start looking for where do you hold the event. This is a question I get quite a bit. It's around how do you negotiate contracts? How do you get the most bang for your buck when it comes to location? And all of the questions that go into picking the venue. A lot of people decide they want to hold an event and then they get held up on the venue and it never becomes reality. So the point of this video is to quickly take you through your options and what's going to be the best fit for you. Okay, so let's start with, should you hold it in your town where you live or should you go to a major city? If this is your first event or your second or third event, I would recommend going to a major city where people can fly in easily. The reason that you want to do this versus your hometown is that you will just get more people to the event. Convincing people that they need to leave their home, get on an airplane, get a hotel, and go somewhere is hard enough. Imagine that you need to take 2 connecting flights to get to where you're going. This happened to a friend of mine. He holds his events in remote locations, and you have to usually take 2 connection flights because his airport is so small that when you get off the plane, they actually roll the stairs up to the side. Now, the reason that I'm telling you that story, you probably just thought of that and you were like, I don't know if I want to go there. Imagine looking at flights and seeing that you're going to be through 2 connections on a plane all day to get there. Makes it immediately people are like, I don't know if I really want to do that. Instead, hold your event in a major location that is easy to get a direct flight into. If you're holding it in the winter, I would say January, February, March, it's not going to be Denver. Otherwise, Denver is a great location because it's so central. During the winter months, you're probably going to want to look at Orlando or Dallas, maybe Houston. Those are central locations that are easy to fly into and will not be affected nearly as much by weather. Okay, so we've decided whether you're holding it in your hometown or a major location. The asterisk there is it should only be your hometown if it's a major hub or if you have held tons of live events. Okay, the next thing is, should you look for an Airbnb or maybe a hotel suite type event? Should you be looking at a hotel boardroom type setup where, you know, they have the big air walls and you can go to a really big event? Or should you be looking at a co-working space? So depending on how big you want the event to be and how many people you think you're going to have there, that's where this starts. Also, the outcomes that you get people. If you are doing a mastermind style event where there's going to be a lot of hot seats, there's going to be a lot of interaction, I would suggest going for an Airbnb or a hotel suite. These are usually events that are somewhere between, I would say, 10 and 25 people. You can fit them comfortably in the room. It's going to be intimate. It's going to serve you really, really well to impact those people's lives, and it's going to help create that rapport, which in the end leads to amazing sales. Do you need an MC for that? This is a question that I sometimes get, and the answer is yes. You want somebody there to help take the burden off of your shoulders and allow you to just live in your magic, and they facilitate the event for you. This is a more active MC role because you're not going to have a lot of speakers. It's more of a facilitator that is there to hold the space, allow you to live in your genius, and control the things that are going on, as well as help with all the small things like food. Bringing me to the next point, which is food and beverage. So if you hold this in a hotel style space, which is what most people think of when they think of live events, you are most likely going to get dinged with food and beverage minimums as well as room block minimums. And this is something to think about. This is why I'm actually going to leave hotel spaces to the third and least favorable venue. Instead, I would look at co-working spaces. You can usually rent a room in a co-working space that will hold up to 50 people. Most co-working spaces have these, and it is a much better option than a hotel space for 3 big reasons. The first one is the food and beverage minimum. In a co-working space, there is no food and beverage minimum. A lot of times they will include coffee, tea, water for free with the room rental. This is a lot different than a hotel space. A hotel space is going to charge you for the hotel space, then they're going to charge you food and beverage, and then rooms on top of it. If you hold your event at a co-working space, you can provide food through local catering, through Uber Eats very easily, or you can take everybody out to lunch, usually within walking distance, and coffee is provided. Now, you might think, well, coffee and water, what does that really have to do with anything? At a hotel venue, they will charge between $80 up to $200. I've seen $200 per gallon of coffee, and they sell it in a gallon. So if you want to have coffee for people, you're going to end up spending $1,000 on coffee. Much more reasonable to hold at a co-working space. So the first one is food and beverage. The second one is the room block. You will be responsible for a room block, and nowadays a lot of people like to stay in Airbnbs. They like to do other things for housing. If you don't want to be tied to a room block, a co-working space makes a lot of sense. Now, the third thing is the co-working space is going to provide a different experience for your people. It's usually a lot more intimate. It usually feels a lot better and feels like you're actually doing something. The hotel, they can leave, they can go up to the room. If you have them at the co-working space, it's a more intimate space and it's going to provide more rapport. The challenge with this is 50, 60 people max is what you can do there. Now, a little caveat to this is that you can go to Airbnb. You can also go to like a meeting event site, and sometimes you can find a studio that is not a hotel space but works like what I'm talking about here for a co-working space that could hold like 50 people. We found one of these in Miami. It was a film studio that was set up with lots of different backdrops, and it worked out amazingly well. It keeps people in the room and engaged with what you're doing, which ultimately leads to more sales. So third and finally is our hotel space. Now, if you are going to hold an event that is, I would say, 60 people and up, you're going to have to use a hotel space. The things that you want to press really, really hard on when you are signing the contract is low food and beverage minimums and zero room block. They're going to try to sell you into a room block. They're going to say, well, your people are going to save money. We're going to give them a 10% discount code. In honesty, you can get that same discount by going to booking.com or Kayak or any of those. It's going to be the same cost, and you personally are not on the hook for it. You want to make sure that you get that room block as low as possible. Same with food and beverage minimums. I also ask permission to bring in snacks for people. Hey, we're going to have some sponsors that are going to give out snacks. I just want to make sure that that is okay. Otherwise, they're going to tell you that every piece of food you get has to come through their food and beverage, which is also what is in the industry known as a plus service, plus gratuity, and plus taxes. So you're going to have about 35% tacked on top of what that food and beverage is. Now, if you need to hold an event in a hotel room, in a hotel space, you want to make sure that you push those numbers down. You also want to be very clear on when you get the space. You usually want the space the night before your event so you can go in and set everything up, make sure everything's okay. You want to be clear on the AV setup. Do they force you to use their AV or a recommended AV provider? A lot of times this is more expensive than somebody you can find third party. Also, what does the staging look like? What does all of that cost? It's going to be more expensive, but if you're doing a larger event, that's where you have to be. If this is your first event, I would highly encourage you to do a co-working space and do an event for 30 to 60 people in the co-working space or in a hotel suite. Get some traction. It is really challenging to sell an event, and it is better to sell out your first event and tell people that there's a waiting list than to have a big hotel room with all the big budget behind it and not fill it. So those are the different event venues that you can use and the costs associated with them. If you have any questions on this, always feel free, click the link down below. Click some time with me. I'm happy to spend 30 minutes with you and walk you through how to hold a profitable event, and it really starts with your venue.